differently. Are we witnessing the fall of Christianity in America? According to a new Newsweek poll, 62% of Americans consider the United States a Christian nation. That's down from 69% during the tail end of the Bush presidency last year. And a whopping 68% say religion is losing its influence in American life.
Over the past 30 years, across England, the number going to church has fallen dramatically. In 1979, nearly 5.5 million people went to church on a Sunday. In 1989, that had fallen by 1 million. By 1998, the figure was down to 3.7 million. And by 2005, just over 3 million were attending church. That's a fall of 40%. If the decline continues at this rate, it's estimated that by 2020, there will be just 2.3 million, less than 5% of the population. It's a sobering statistic, and for many Christians, a depressing picture. But why has it happened? One of those not shy about voicing his criticisms of Christianity is atheist and newspaper columnist Johann Hari.
Hello, I'm Anne Whittaker. Hi, very good to see you.
He thinks he knows why my faith is in decline. Johann, what have you got against Christianity and where do you think it's going?
Well, I absolutely defend the rights of Christians to say and argue whatever they want, to assemble whatever they want. If anyone ever tries to stop any democratic citizen in this country freely speaking and making their arguments, I'll be the first person on your side arguing in their defence. But look, Christianity has lost the argument. It's failing to persuade people. You are free to make your case, and you've lost. And I think it's because the factual claims that Christianity makes have been proven to be false, and because the causes which the dying embers of Christianity have attached themselves to are pretty ugly ones.
Well, let's hold on just there for a few moments.
The teachings of Christianity are that you forgive people who've harmed you, that you pray for your enemies, that you turn the other cheek. I do not understand why you want those to be snuffed out.
I don't. They're human teachings. Do you think I don't have a concept of forgiveness because I'm an atheist?
I think that you would not immediately pray for your enemies.
I don't pray because I don't believe in a supernatural being, but I think I'm as forgiving to my enemies as you are to yours.
But the Christian creed preaches that forgiveness. It isn't down to individuals to come to that.
I teach my nephews to do that, and I'm an atheist. I teach them to think, to try to understand where people are coming from.
You as an individual, but what I'm saying is that here you have an organisation which sets out to promote those values en masse.
Well, let's talk about the lessons they're being given. The lessons that those people are taught are, amongst other things, that they should campaign to retain laws that legally discriminate against gay people, that treat gay people as second-class citizens. I think Christianity will go into the same dustbin of history as, say, the worship of Zeus or Thor. And I think broadly that'll be a positive thing. Now, the values that you think of as Christian values, of forgiveness and kindness and charity, they will persist. But I think the kind of nasty dogmas that lead people to discriminate against gay people or treat women badly because they believe God commanded it, I think those will wither. I don't think they're persuading people.
I think Johann overlooks the pioneering role my faith had in making Britain the civilized nation it is today.
People often talk about Christianity, the world's Christianity, nominal Christianity, being attacked from the outside. And I do not mean to say that's not the case. We have secular organizations and atheist organizations and different religions, and there is an attack going on concerning nominal Christianity out there in the world, in the United States, Europe, and elsewhere. But there is also a crumbling from within. The idea that somehow nominal worldly Christianity is only facing enemies from the outside is just completely false. There's a crumbling and a rotting from within as well. And frankly, it's the kind of thing you see in a lot of other places where liberal-minded academics who have a certain social perspective that is different than something traditionally held get into positions of power and decide to move things in that direction. It's not actually conspiratorial, it's just the way life works.
Welcome to post-Christian Europe, a land filled with beautiful monuments to an ancient religion that few Europeans practice anymore or know much about. Europe today has gone beyond unbelief and is now labeled Christophobic and anti-religious. While an American might look at a church building and think nice thoughts, that's rarely the case with a European, especially here in France, where religion is more likely to be associated with oppression, irrelevance, or simply the past. In France, as in much of Europe, only 5% go to church on a weekly basis, and most of them are the elderly. Only 10% think religion is very important. For all Europeans, that figure is only 21%. Journalist Richard Miniter.
As an American living in Europe, when you tell Europeans that you go to church on Sunday, they look at you like a museum piece, something strange.
Near Brussels, at Christian Center and Assemblies of God Church, Belgian pastor Paul de Vos ministers to a culture in which Christianity is largely irrelevant.
In the United States, people would more quickly turn toward at least Christ in general and Christianity because it's still somewhat part of the culture in general. Here in Europe, we have gone beyond that point, and we do not expect anything from religion, apart from some very abstract hope that there is something after this life.
And among the clergy in the state churches, unbelief is extraordinarily high. Baylor sociologist Rodney Stark.
It's easy to have a negative religious experience going to church in Europe. The one place where unbelief is rampant is in the churches.
The study Fragmented Faith found that in Britain, 1 out of 5 Anglican pastors do not believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ, and only 60% believe in the virgin birth. That's a lower level of belief than among churchgoers.
It's the churches they don't go to, and one of the reasons they don't go is that the people running them don't care if they don't go.
There have been news reports recently that although church attendance in Europe is low, belief in God is actually very high. But belief in what sort of God? Judging from surveys, it's a New Age faith, with a large dose of moral relativism. Vince Esterman, a Frenchman who grew up in Australia, has been a French pastor for almost 20 years and has a dynamic street ministry in Paris. And although he has led a lot of Frenchmen to Christ, he doesn't talk much about revival. He speaks of a Europe that is still moving away from God.
Europe that was the custodian of the gospel in the very early decades now is the continent that is rejecting the gospel and Christianity. And so we have seen France go into decline, and with it, Europe generally.
But instead of looking to faith for answers, the European media continue to mock America's high church attendance as weird. The British Economist magazine writes, "To Europeans, religion is the strangest and most disturbing feature about America."
So it's open season on evangelicals, in particular in France. But absolutely nothing can be said against Muslims, of course, because there's always retaliation.
Rodney Stark writes in The Victory of Reason that Europe owes everything to Christianity. Its culture, its freedom, its science, and its wealth. But European leaders today are defiant in their efforts to keep God and Christian faith out of public life. A sociologist at the Sorbonne in Paris says, "We are not going to sacrifice women's equality, democracy, and individual freedoms on the altar of a new religion." But some would say Europe has a new religion. Italy's culture minister, Rocco Buttiglione, a devout Catholic, calls it a nihilistic fundamentalism against truth. Stark simply calls it hedonism and says it's why Europe is dying. No Western European country is having enough babies to replace its current population.
The loss of faith in Europe is like an unseen black star that still has a tremendous gravitational pull. They don't understand why their culture is failing. They don't understand why the divorce rates and suicide rates are so high. They don't understand why so few European women have more than one child, and why on most European streets you see more dogs than children. All this is an impact of the death of real Christian belief in Europe.
Europe today has been described as a majority of Christian atheists and a minority of Muslim fanatics. It's an exaggeration, but there is a spiritual void that Islam waits to fill. It was this void in the life of a Belgian woman, a former drug addict named Muriel de Gauck, that caused her to convert to Islam, go to Iraq, and blow herself up trying to kill U.S. troops.
I have been an eyewitness to France becoming increasingly Islamicized. There is no longer an ability to morally resist a strong culture like Islam coming into the country.
Europe is going to get more religious than it is, either because of a revival of Christianity or because they go Muslim. You can't sit there with no babies forever.
And because faith impacts everything from culture to economics to the war on terror, analysts say religious America and anti-religious Europe are likely to drift farther apart, unless or until Europe returns to God.
As our special report.
This is the story of 3 Chicagoans, all raised as Christians, all who decided to ultimately reject that religion.
Internet is down.
Nadira Rodriguez Muhammad grew up Catholic, but found herself constantly questioning the long-held beliefs of her family.
I always felt that something was missing from me.
Ian Bushner is a law student at the University of Chicago.
I felt like that there wasn't a God.
Whitney Nichols is a new Loyola grad who grew up in suburban Streamwood.
I guess what I was really looking for was what felt most natural and most logical to me.
When Nadira entered high school in the mid-1990s, she became friends with a group of Muslim girls.
They just had this level of contentment and a sisterhood that was... I wanted to be a part of that.
Ian drifted towards the Muslim students at his high school as well.
I remember defending some of my friends at school from accusations, after 9/11. And then I started reading the Quran. I said, oh, here is a form of God that I've never been presented before.
After September 11, the interest actually increased.
Dr. Assad Basul is professor at Chicago's Islamic American College. He says the tragedy 6 years ago initially prompted angry questions, but eventually many of the curious found answers to their own spiritual questions through Islam and converted.
Sometimes, negative things bring positive things.
In fact, according to a first-ever random sampling of American Muslims by the Pew Research Center, 21% of the nation's 2.4 million Muslims are converts to the faith.
Eventually, I realized that I was looking to the Quran for advice, for direction, and at the point that you believe that the Quran is revelation from God, then you're a Muslim.
The conversion has meant many changes in their lives. Ian prays 5 times a day.
According to a report by Faith Matters, the UK is seeing a surge in Brits converting to Islam. In the last year, around 5,200 people in Britain converted to Islam. As many as 100,000 have converted in the last decade. Now, while that's not a huge number if you consider the UK's total population, which is around 61 million, it's definitely notable. Of those converting, about 62% were women, and the average age is over 27 years old. And the vast majority of women who converted also changed their appearance, with a significant majority adopting the hijab, or a headscarf. Now, we've done stories here on the show how some European countries have voted to ban the hijab in public, to ban minarets. But that's not the case in the UK. Now, the obvious question really is, what is behind this high rate of conversion? Some followers told Britain's The Telegraph that they felt lost in their own lives, that they were lacking in purpose before conversion. And most Brits have reported that since their conversion, they've been living with ease in the UK, that they've only faced minimal problems from their families about their new choice of religion. So what's going on? What is compelling so many young white women to convert to Islam in droves?
According to research, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there must be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. A rate of 1.3, impossible to reverse, because it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself. And there is no economic model that can sustain a culture during that time. In other words, if 2 sets of parents each have 1 child, there are half as many children as parents. If those children have 1 child, then there are 1/4 as many grandchildren as grandparents. If only 1 million babies are born in 2006, it's hard to have 2 million adults enter the workforce in 2026. As the population shrinks, so does the culture. As of 2007, the fertility rate in France was 1.8, England 1.6, Greece 1.3, Germany 1.3, Italy 1.2, Spain 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility is a mere 1.38. Historical research tells us these numbers are impossible to reverse. In a matter of years, Europe as we know it will cease to exist. 1.8 children per family. Muslims, 8.1. In southern France, traditionally one of the most populated church regions in the world, there are now more mosques than churches. 30% of children ages 20 and younger are Islamic. In the larger cities such as Nice, Marseille, and Paris, that number has grown to 45%. By 2027, 1 in 5 Frenchmen will be Muslim. In just 39 years, France will be an Islamic republic. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. There are over 1,000 mosques, many of them former churches. In the Netherlands, 50% of all newborns are Muslim, and in only 15 years, half of the population of the Netherlands will be Muslim. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That's 1 out of 5 Russians. 40% of the entire Russian army will be Islamic in just a few short years. Currently in Belgium, 25% of the population and 50% of all newborns are Muslim. The government of Belgium has stated 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2025, just 17 years away. The German government, the first to talk about this publicly, recently released a statement saying, "The fall in the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state."
Consider yourself a person of faith, but do you really know God? The Pew Research Center found that most Americans failed a quiz asking some of the most basic questions about religion, and atheists and agnostics did better than Catholics and evangelicals on that quiz.
Wow, joining me on the show, Dave Silverman. He is the president of American Atheists, a group that put up that billboard. You didn't even have your own money. You had to get it from somebody else, a donor?
Well, we have lots of donors at American Atheists.
All right. I don't really care what your views are. I get it. You don't believe in God. That's fine. You're free to believe whatever you believe. Is it just Christians you're picking on, by the way? In other words, have you ever done a billboard campaign against people that are Jewish or Muslims?
Yes, we have.
And what have you done against the Muslims?
We put up a billboard in Elizabeth, New Jersey that said, "You know it's a myth" in Arabic. And we put up a billboard in Brooklyn that said, "You know it's a myth" in Hebrew.
What was the reaction?
Actually, the Islamic billboard, the Islamic people were actually all about, well, this is a free country and you can say what you want, and some people agreed and some people disagreed.
Well, look at the reaction to the Danish cartoons, or look at the reaction to this YouTube video for Salman Rushdie and the Satanic Verses. There's been some very...
But you know what that is? That's actually a form of terrorism. That's actually a form of them getting us to obey their religious beliefs without imposing the rule of law on it. They scare us into obeying their religious beliefs. It's against their religion that we're not
draw a picture of Muhammad. I don't really care what you believe. I get it. You're an atheist. I'm not going to sit here and convince you. You believe nothing can come out of nothing, which is what I believe atheists in the end have to believe. But that's not the argument. You want to insult people. You want to attack them. You want to, you know, stick them in the ribs on their holiday. and you just want to be rude and narcissistic and mean. Why?
Sean, we have never put up a billboard criticizing people. We criticize religion, and religion is perfectly open market.
But people believe in religion. I'm a Christian. I look at a picture of Jesus, and you just want to rub salt in a wound.
No.
Why are you doing it that?
Because this is the time of year when so many atheists who call themselves Christians drag themselves to church against their own will because they think the church...
Atheists who call themselves Christian. You don't know.
Atheists who call themselves Christians.
You said it. You said
Well, let me
article.
explain what I'm saying here, okay? They drag themselves to church because they think the church is an integral part of Christmas, and it's not. We're saying for those people, you can keep the merry, you can have a party. You don't have to go to a church in which you don't believe. You don't have to pray to a God.
Well, it's an event that's created a lot of buzz among local churches and Christian groups. The largest public satanic ceremony in history happening right here in Detroit. 7 Action News reporter Jane Park is live with us tonight. Jane, organizers went to great lengths to keep this a private, exclusive party. What's up?
They really did, Dave. Now, we are standing along Grand River, and the building behind me was where guests originally came, but shortly after they were let in, they were told to go to a second undisclosed location where we're to believe that party is going on right now. The Satanic Temple made it very clear it would be their members and their guests and not our cameras that will be getting a first look at this much talked about statue. The lines ran along the graffitied walls, at least 100 people eagerly waiting for what's been kept well under wraps.
It said dress like an animal or wear horns and tails.
Some drove in from as far as upstate New York to see the Satanic Temple unveil a 9-foot-tall bronze statue of a goat-headed Satan.
It just seemed like it would be a historic event.
The guests came dressed to impress. Each paid at least $25 for a ticket. Security inside was tight. No cameras or media allowed in. No cell phones and photographs allowed. The secretive nature of the event didn't prevent a few protesters from attending.
We figured, well, if they're going to unveil the statue and show statue, well, we're going to show the statue that beat this statue behind the scenes in reality. That's, recounted in the St. John's Apocalypse that St. Michael and his angels defeated Lucifer and his angels.
Members of the Satanic Temple, who say they stand for the separation of church and state, kept mum Saturday night, focused instead on showing their guests a good time. Some came out of curiosity, others just to appreciate the art. And they say don't knock it just because it's not your taste.
A sculpture or a piece of art or a tribute to something that they don't understand is not necessarily going to impact their religion or their beliefs.
There was so much buzz about the night, Detroit police set up outside just to make sure the Satanists and the naysayers stayed civil.
We support anyone's First Amendment right to practice whatever religion they want or to come out and protest against that, their freedom of speech. So, we're there to basically protect the rights of everyone involved.
In the end, the group made good on its promise to make this an exclusive event. Guests patient enough to make it through the line were promptly sent out the back door where outsiders can only imagine the real party awaits. A party, we're told, is supposed to last well beyond midnight. As for the statue, it could end up at the Arkansas State Capitol, where there is a Ten Commandments statue also planned. Live.
Gathered here to celebrate the spirit of humanity in the dawn of a new American era. In a season when many commemorate the birth of Christ, we commemorate our own Genesis, the enlightenment of all humanity, a revelation of our nature as written in the annals of history, a gift from Lucifer, the light bringer, the morning star, and the rebel. We are Satanists. We engender moral, spiritual, and sexual freedom, personal independence, and insist upon personal choice in all things. We care for the significance of the individual spirit and personal moral responsibility. If you stand here today and embrace your nature, are free-thinking, self-governed, and godless, you too are a Satanist in the eyes of many in your own community, including those who represent you in your governments. We are also Americans. We are seeking collaborators, individuals for a visionary satanic alliance, leaders, of the new American era. And it is time to awaken. Do you want to be part of a sleeping world?
No!
Do you want to gorge on the drug of the commonplace?
No!
Will you forever remain addicted to the oppressive traditions of a counterfeit morality?
No!
Well, we must tell those people who represent us. As we stand on the crossroads of history, let us confront the blind and self-righteous, the persecutors of thought and reason. Let us rise up in celebration of our satanic nature and cast our chains into the dust of hell. The word of God has been evoked time and time again to justify the opposition to civil rights movements, to squash women's liberation. We have to do more when women are denied access to reproductive health care and vilified as murderers.
Yeah!
To represent them in the government. Satanic America has heard your call to action. If religion is to lead in areas which have traditionally been left to a secular democracy, we will do our duty too, to bring the insights of our satanic practice to the State House, to the courthouse, to schools, and of course, homes and businesses of America.
Yes!
Wherever and whenever diverse religious guidance is needed. All hail the new American era. An America that embraces our fellow neighbors with the integrity of their character rather than the God to whom they pray. An America where we stand to defend justice and honor for our brothers and sisters regardless of whom they call husband or wife and regardless of their personal bodily choices. Comrades, we are just as powerful as those who work in this institution here. Those who wish to uphold the traditions of old feel us breathing down their necks. And we will continue to be the voice of reason to ensure that our America remains free and equal. All hail the eternal rebel within all of us. To liberty, humanity, and justice. To the satanic emancipator and end of repressive traditions.